When people write a will, they say it's about closure, about fairness, about taking care of loved ones, about making things easier after they're gone. But sometimes a will does the opposite. Instead of peace, it leaves confusion. Instead of clarity, it creates chaos. Instead of bringing families together, it turns grief into a legal nightmare. Because a will isn't just about money. It's the last thing someone gets to say without anyone being able to respond. And some people use that silence to make jokes that land badly. Others use it to control lives they're no longer part of. And some use it to punish people for conflicts they never resolved. Money gets left to pets with impossible conditions. Families are forced to follow bizarre rules just to inherit. Entire estates disappear into lawsuits over a single line of text. The person who wrote the will is gone. The consequences aren't. And the people left behind don't just inherit assets, they inherit intentions. Here are the stupidest things people have ever put in their wills. Not because they were funny, not because they were clever, but because they turned what should have been a final act of care into a mess no one asked for. Fact 1. Leaving everything to a pet, with conditions. Some people left their entire estate to a dog or cat, believing it showed love. Legally, pets can't inherit money, so courts had to appoint trustees, set up care funds, and fight over what the pet's wishes even meant. Families went to court, lawyers got paid. The pet stayed confused. The stupidity wasn't loving an animal, it was turning affection into a legal headache. Fact 2. Forcing family members to marry or divorce. Some wills included conditions like, you only inherit if you marry, or if you leave your spouse. The intent was control. The result was lawsuits. Courts often voided the conditions, but not before families fought over interpretation and intent. The stupidity wasn't caring about family choices. It was trying to control them from the grave. Fact 3. Requiring daily visits to a grave. One will demanded heirs visit the grave every single day to receive inheritance. Miss a day? Lose the money. Enforcement was impossible. Proof was disputed. Family members accused each other of cheating. The estate stalled. Lawyers stepped in. The stupidity wasn't wanting to be remembered. It was attaching money to an unpoliceable demand. Fact 4. Leaving money for revenge. Some people left money specifically to exclude one child, sibling, or spouse, with a note explaining why. Instead of closure, it sparked years of legal battles and permanent family fractures. The money didn't punish the target, it poisoned everyone else. The stupidity wasn't resentment, it was preserving it forever. Fact 5. Writing a will without a lawyer. Handwritten wills, conflicting clauses, missing signatures. People tried to save money and keep it simple. The result was ambiguity that courts had to untangle at massive cost. The stupidity wasn't avoiding legal fees, it was guaranteeing much bigger ones later. Fact 6. Turning a will into a practical joke. Some people treated their will like a final prank. They left absurd instructions, sarcastic notes, or funny clauses meant to shock family members during the reading. The joke lasted minutes. The consequences lasted years. Relatives argued over intent. Courts had to decide what was legally binding and what was just a joke. The stupidity wasn't having a sense of humor. It was forgetting that jokes don't survive legal scrutiny. Fact 7. Leaving money with impossible conditions. Some wills demanded heirs complete tasks that were unrealistic or outright impossible. Finish a degree by a certain age. Have children within a time limit. Live in a specific place forever. When heirs failed, disputes followed. The money sat untouched while lawsuits piled up. The stupidity wasn't setting standards. It was confusing control with foresight. Fact 8. Splitting assets with extreme precision. Some people divided their estate down to the smallest detail. Specific objects, exact dollar amounts, hyper-detailed instructions. When values changed or items disappeared, the math broke. Family members fought over pennies while estates froze. The stupidity wasn't being organized. It was ignoring how time changes everything. Fact 9. Leaving money to strangers out of spite. Some wills redirected large sums to charities, neighbors, or complete strangers, not out of generosity, but to spite family members. The result wasn't satisfaction, it was endless litigation. Courts examined mental state, families contested validity, estates drained away. The stupidity wasn't giving money away, it was using inheritance as revenge. Fact 10. Using a will to rewrite history. Some people used wills to set the record straight. They included long explanations, accusations, and emotional statements meant to justify past conflicts. Those words didn't heal anything. They reopened wounds. The stupidity wasn't wanting to be understood. It was choosing the worst possible moment to explain yourself. Fact 11. Controlling people for decades after death. Some wills tried to control heirs for decades. They dictated careers, lifestyles, where someone could live, or how they had to behave to keep receiving money. The person writing the will was gone. The control wasn't. Families spent years arguing over compliance. Courts stepped in to decide how much power a dead person should still have. The stupidity wasn't wanting influence. It was assuming control doesn't expire. Fact 12. Delaying inheritance until moral improvement. Some wills stated heirs would only inherit once they became responsible, mature, or worthy. No clear definition, no timeline. Lawyers had to interpret morality. Trustees made judgment calls that fueled resentment. The money didn't teach responsibility, it taught bitterness. The stupidity wasn't concerned for behavior. It was turning values into vague legal standards. Fact 13. Forcing heirs to live together. Some wills required family members to live in the same house for years to inherit. The idea was unity. The result was conflict, resentment, and legal action. People stayed together only because money trapped them there. The stupidity wasn't wanting family closeness. It was trying to mandate it. Fact 14. Using money to settle old scores. Some wills reopened conflicts that had been dormant for decades. A line explaining why someone received less. A note clarifying who was at fault. The person who wrote it got closure. Everyone else got dragged back into the past. The stupidity wasn't honesty. It was weaponizing memory. Fact 15. Assuming the family would understand. Many people wrote unclear or emotionally loaded clauses, believing their family would know what they meant. They didn't. Different interpretations led to fights, lawsuits, and permanent damage. The stupidity wasn't trusting family, it was trusting ambiguity. Fact 16. Demanding illegal actions. Some wills demanded actions that were outright illegal, destroying property, evading taxes, hiding assets, ignoring court orders. Courts immediately voided those clauses, but not before families argued over intent and responsibility. The stupidity wasn't breaking the law, it was assuming death grants immunity. Fact 17. Requiring impossible tasks. Some wills required heirs to complete tasks that couldn't realistically be done, reaching unreachable goals, recreating past events, proving impossible conditions. When heirs failed, estates stalled. Lawyers argued over whether impossible meant void. The stupidity wasn't ambition. It was confusing fantasy with enforceability. Fact 18. Contradicting the will with itself. Some wills contained clauses that directly contradicted each other. One line gave everything to one person, another divided it among many. Courts had to decide which line mattered more. Years passed. Money vanished into legal fees. The stupidity wasn't complexity. It was not proofreading your last words. Fact 19. Forgetting local laws exist. Some people wrote wills based on assumptions, not law. They ignored inheritance limits, spousal rights, or tax rules in their jurisdiction. The will didn't survive contact with reality. The stupidity wasn't intention, it was ignorance of the system enforcing it. Fact 20. Using outdated or invalid documents. Some people relied on old wills, unsigned pages, or documents that no longer applied. Life changed, the paperwork didn't. Courts had to reconstruct intent with incomplete information. Families paid the price. The stupidity wasn't procrastination. It was assuming old decisions age well. Fact 21. Leaving $1 on purpose. Some people deliberately left $1 to a specific heir. The message was clear. This wasn't a mistake. It didn't bring closure. It guaranteed resentment. Heirs challenged the will. Courts examined intent. Years were spent arguing over a single symbolic insult. The stupidity wasn't sending a message. It was making sure everyone paid to read it. Fact 22. Using a will to publicly humiliate. Some wills included detailed explanations of why certain people deserved less. Personal failures, old arguments, moral judgments. Those words didn't stay private. They became court records. Grief turned into public spectacle. The stupidity wasn't honesty. It was confusing last words with final revenge. Fact 23. Punishing people for life choices. Some wills punished heirs for career choices, relationships, or beliefs. Money was offered, but only if someone lived the right way. The result wasn't compliance. It was rebellion and lawsuits. The stupidity wasn't having opinions, it was trying to enforce them forever. Fact 24. Rewarding loyalty, not care. Some people structured wills to reward obedience, not genuine support. Those who followed orders got paid. Those who actually helped got less. Families noticed. The money didn't reflect care, it reflected control. The stupidity wasn't gratitude. It was misunderstanding loyalty. Fact 25. Assuming money would fix emotions. Many people believed inheritance would smooth over unresolved conflict. It didn't. Money magnified everything already there: resentment, jealousy, anger. The stupidity wasn't leaving assets. It was thinking money replaces conversation. Fact 26. Leaving instructions for an elaborate funeral show. Some people turned their will into a production script. Specific costumes, loud music, public stunts, unusual performances. They thought it would be memorable. What it became was expensive, stressful, and awkward for grieving families forced to perform grief on command. The stupidity wasn't wanting to be remembered. It was demanding entertainment at someone else's expense. Fact 27. Demanding ashes or bodies be used strangely. Some wills demanded ashes be scattered in illegal places, mixed into objects, or handled in disturbing ways. Families faced a choice: obey the will or obey the law. Either way, someone lost. The stupidity wasn't creativity. It was ignoring legal and emotional boundaries. Fact 28. Leaving property with no plan for maintenance. Some people left homes, land, or businesses with strict do not change anything rules. No renovations, no sales, no modernization. Costs piled up, properties decayed, heirs argued. The stupidity wasn't preserving legacy, it was freezing assets in time. Fact 29. Requiring heirs to compete for money. Some wills forced family members to complete contests, challenges, or comparisons to win inheritance. Grades, income levels, personal achievements. Instead of unity, it created rivalry. The stupidity wasn't motivation. It was turning grief into a competition. Fact 30. Assuming everyone would find it funny. Many people assumed their family would laugh. They didn't. What seemed clever on paper felt cruel in practice. The stupidity wasn't humor. It was misreading your audience permanently. Fact 31. Creating trusts that never end. Some people created trusts designed to last forever. Money locked behind layers of rules, conditions, and trustees long after the original purpose disappeared. Generations grew up constrained by decisions made by someone they never met. The stupidity wasn't long-term planning. It was refusing to let the future breathe. Fact 32. Splitting assets unevenly without explanation. Some wills divided assets wildly unevenly, with no explanation at all. Silence did more damage than any insult. Heirs filled the gap with suspicion, resentment, and years of litigation trying to guess intent. The stupidity wasn't favoritism. It was leaving people to imagine the reasons. Fact 33. Turning family homes into legal battlegrounds. Some people left shared homes to multiple heirs without clear instructions. No plan for ownership, no plan for sale, no plan for responsibility. Families fought over walls, roofs, and memories. The stupidity wasn't sentimentality. It was refusing to decide. Fact 34. Assuming heirs would cooperate forever. Some wills assumed siblings, cousins, or distant relatives would work together peacefully. They didn't. Small disagreements turned into permanent rifts as money sat trapped in legal limbo. The stupidity wasn't optimism, it was ignoring human nature. Fact 35. Letting lawyers decide everything. Some wills were so vague that judges and lawyers effectively rewrote them. The person's voice disappeared. Legal interpretation replaced intention. Most of the estate went to fees. The stupidity wasn't trusting professionals, it was forcing strangers to finish your thoughts. Fact 36. Leaving everything to a charity without telling anyone. Some people left their entire estate to a charity without ever discussing it with family. Legally valid, emotionally explosive. Relatives contested the will, questioned mental capacity, and dragged charities into years of litigation. The stupidity wasn't generosity, it was surprise generosity. Fact 37. Using a will to make a final confession. Some wills contained shocking admissions. Affairs, secrets, betrayals. The person was gone. The fallout wasn't. Families were left processing grief and revelation at the same time. The stupidity wasn't honesty, it was choosing the worst possible timing. Fact 39. Dividing debt as carelessly as assets. Some wills addressed assets carefully and ignored debt entirely. Heirs discovered obligations late, after decisions were already made. The inheritance became a liability. The stupidity wasn't owing money, it was leaving a financial ambush. Fact 41. Writing a will to control emotions. Some people tried to manage how others would feel after they were gone. Who should grieve? Who should forgive? Who should feel guilty? Money can't choreograph emotions. The stupidity wasn't caring, it was overestimating control. Fact 42. Using inheritance as a test. Some wills framed inheritance as a final test of worth. Pass and you're rewarded. Fail and you're cut out. Families turned into examinees. The stupidity wasn't wanting effort, it was turning love into a scoreboard. Fact 43. Leaving legacies without context. Some people left money for causes or projects with no explanation. Heirs didn't know why it mattered or how to continue it. The legacy faded quickly. The stupidity wasn't idealism, it was failing to communicate meaning. Fact 44. Turning a will into a final argument. Some wills read like a last fight. Accusations, defensiveness, justifications. The person got the last word. Everyone else got lasting damage. The stupidity wasn't wanting to be heard. It was mistaking silence for resolution. Fact 45. Forgetting who has to live with it. Every bad will ends the same way. The writer is gone, the consequences stay. The dumbest thing people put in their wills isn't a clause or condition. It's forgetting that wills aren't read by the dead. They're lived with by the living. So far, we've seen wills turn into jokes that weren't funny, rules that couldn't be enforced, and conditions designed to control people who no longer had a say. Money was left to pets, to strangers, and to causes no one understood. Families were forced into competitions, arguments, and courtrooms. And lawyers quietly did very well. None of these wills failed because the person lacked assets. They failed because they confused intention with clarity. A will can transfer money. It can't transfer control, fix resentment, or finish arguments. And every time someone tried to use it that way, the same thing happened. The person who wrote it found closure. Everyone else inherited the consequences. People like to think a will is about control. Control over money, control over outcomes, control over how they'll be remembered. But a will doesn't freeze time. It enters it. The moment it's read, it stops belonging to the person who wrote it and starts belonging to the people who have to live with it. Every strange rule, every joke that went too far, every condition designed to punish or control, they all shared the same flaw. They assumed silence meant agreement. That once the words were written down, the story was finished. It wasn't. Money can move assets. It can't resolve resentment. It can't explain intentions clearly enough to survive grief, stress, and lawyers. And when people try to use a will to say what they never said in life, they don't get closure. They get litigation. The dumbest things people put in their wills aren't about creativity or cruelty. They're about forgetting who a will is really for, not the dead, but the living who inherit far more than money.